Children and divorce. Most children don't like it when their parents get divorced, and they tend to want them to get back together and have the family together, almost regardless of how dysfunctional their parents are. On the other hand, more and more frequently, we're seeing children whose response to their parents' divorce is, "How did you take so long in getting to this point?" Divorce is not the taboo that it once was. Children need to live in a happy and secure home. If the parents are fighting all the time, staying together does not help the children. Being separate and apart, where they live in a calm place one time and a calm place another time, is much better for them. The parents need to cooperate as much as possible. That's good for the children. But staying together for the sake of the children and fighting all the time is not for the sake of the children. Okay, so having said that, how's the court going to decide what to do with your children? We now have a system, and have had for several years, a system called parenting plans. It's an approximately 17-page order that you go through to figure out who needs to do what for the children and in what amounts. I'm sure it's an appendix to the About Divorce website. You might want to go to that and start looking at that. If you can agree, good. The court will almost always approve it. If you can't decide what you want to do, the court will decide for you. And if the court's going to decide, it's going to look at a list of factors, one of which is how well you get along with the other parent. So if you're angry at the other parent and you use the children for that anger as a tool to get back at the other parent, you may not get to use that tool much because the kids may be taken away from you. So if you want to keep the kids, you've got to cooperate with the other parent. Getting the kids to school, helping them with their education. Please, if you're one of our clients and it's your time to have the kids, get them to school on time. That is one of the most objective standards we can look at. You've got them one week, you've got them the next. You get them there late half the time, you get them there on time every time. The court has a record and looks at that, and that's one of the objective things a court can look at. You help them with their homework, you don't. They do better on their weekly quizzes than they do with you. That's one of the objective things a court can look at. And deciding custody is tough for judges. So when they're given something objective to work with, it has a disproportionate power in their decision making. On the other hand, also remember, Facebook will betray you. It's not a question of Facebook's ethics or insight or friendliness. That's what Facebook does. The stuff you post on Facebook is there for the public, and it gives us an abundance of proof. So be careful what you put on Facebook, and don't believe that by deleting it, we can't get access to it anymore. So watch that. Be supportive to the other parent. Be a good, responsible parent to your children. There are a bunch of other things to look at for the court to make that decision, but the decision occurs in the guts of the judge more than it does in their brain, more in their heart than in their brain. If the judge feels right, that's what they tend to do, and the law is loose enough to justify almost whatever they do, except for domestic violence. Domestic violence weighs heavily against you. Violence against a child weighs heavily against you, okay? These are important things to consider. Another question we often get is about relocation. The law has just changed back to what it was before the statute got passed several years ago. It's the best interest of the child. okay? Which is what I believe it should have always been, and what I think a lot of judges tended to gravitate towards. So the best interest of the child, it can be tough if you don't have a good reason to move. Because one of the things that's going to happen is the child's generally going to want to stay where they have access to the other parent. The child's generally want to stay where they have friends. The child generally wants to stay where they go to school or in church, play sports. So you've got to prove a move is in the best interest. Again, domestic violence can play a large part in that. I needed a parent who says, I need to leave because the other parent is stalking me, the other parent is threatening me, the other parent is assaulting me. That becomes a very compelling reason to move. So, a couple of things I want to tell you about children. It's not their divorce. Leave them out of it. They don't want to hear it. They don't need to hear it. They don't put the burden on a 6-year-old to tell you whether or not you should stay married to your spouse. Don't ask an 8-year-old who was right in this argument. Don't try to justify your adultery to a 16-year-old. It just is a terrible thing to do to the child. One of the stupidest things you can do is try to turn your child against the other parent. Every child is half one parent and half the other parent. And when a parent starts criticizing another parent to the child, it's bad for the child and it's worse for the criticizing parent's relation to the child. It is a great time to do that most difficult thing, keeping your mouth shut. Don't be beyond lying to your child. Don't be beyond going, well, that's what your mom says, but that's not who she is. Your mom loves you. That's what you need to remember. You might also say, look, you may be mad at mom, but realize she's your mother and she loves you. And this is just something she's done, not who she is. That's going to give you a much better bond with your child. That's going to make life better for your child. It's going to make life better for you. It's a hard thing to do, but once you do it the first time, it's easier to do it the next time. And each time you do it after that, the child becomes closer to you. And if you're really malevolent, you have to figure out, as the child becomes closer to you for not criticizing the other parent, the child becomes more distant from the parent that wasn't criticized. So you can be really nice, though your heart is in a very malevolent place, okay? So don't involve your children. Don't criticize your spouse. Again, look at the parenting plan. If you decide to move away, you better have a really good reason for it. And if you kidnap your kid, it's a felony, and they'll Amber Alert you all over the United States if they need to drag you back here. And if you go through that, then they are sure not going to let you be having time with that kid unsupervised. Okay, so those are some of the important issues about children. Don't make them part of the process. Give them love. Show them a kinder world than you're living in yourself, because you really want to live in a kinder world too. Thank you.